plastic. There are water dispensers and glasses available at the side and the back of the room, so please feel free to take use of those. At the end of the session, we will have the opportunity for some networking. This morning session, we'll have the opportunity for some networking over some light snacks. Also, if you're tweeting about today's event, please use the hashtag #GreenRwanda and Kigali Climate Talks. And finally, for those who are joining on the Ministry of Environment YouTube, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you joining us online. Thank you for being with us. Today's program will begin with welcome remarks from our esteemed guests of honor, followed by a presentation on the outcomes of COP29. Then we'll move into a panel discussion on how Rwanda can leverage these outcomes for effective climate action. After lunch, we'll have two concurrent sessions. One focuses on the EU-led Team Europe Green Diplomacy, discussing the climate biodiversity nexus, and the second will be a youth-focused dialogue. We'll examine how young people can shape future climate policy, and this will be led by the Green Protector. The day will conclude with an informal networking session, so I hope you'll all still be here by then, offering everyone the chance to connect and share ideas.
Of global and national climate action. Allow me to extend my gratitude to the Government of Germany for its partnership and support. Since the inception of these talks, the German embassy in Kigali has been a cornerstone of our effort to foster meaningful dialogue on climate issues. I would also like to thank the European Union and the Green Protector for joining today's expanded edition. Your involvement underscores the growing importance of collaboration and inclusivity as we navigate the complex challenges of climate change. The inclusion of the Team Europe Green Diplomacy session and the Youth Climate Dialogue reflects our commitment to elevating diverse voices and perspectives. But the Kigali Climate Talks are not only about talking. We have put our words into action, and the recent COP29, which we are going to discuss deeper, is a good example of these actions. That is why I'm glad to share that Rwanda actively contributed to the global discussion in Baku, Azerbaijan. It was my first time attending COP, and the experience was both humbling but also inspiring. Witnessing the largest gathering of climate stakeholders reaffirmed my belief in the power of collective action. Rwanda approached COP29 with clear objectives, advocating for increased climate finance, particularly for adaptation, supporting efforts to make Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on carbon markets more effective, and building new partnerships to accelerate our climate ambitions. While we did not achieve the goal of increasing the climate finance to 1.3 trillion USD, tripling climate finance to 300 billion was a big step in the right direction. It was also heartening to see multilateral development banks commit to scaling up funding for climate financing for low and middle income countries to to 120 billion annually by 2030. Domestically, we are also preparing for the next chapter in our climate journey. Rwanda is in the process of developing its new nationally determined contributions, commonly known as NDC 3.0. This updated climate action plan will build on the lessons of the past while aligning with our vision for a sustainable and resilient future. Public consultations will begin soon, and I encourage all stakeholders to actively participate. Your insights will be invaluable in shaping a plan that reflects the aspirations of all Rwandans. Today, as we gather at a place of learning and debate, I urge each of you to engage in a vibrant and active discussions. The sessions planned, from understanding COP29 to exploring green diplomacy and empowering youth voices, offer a unique opportunity to advance our shared goals. Looking ahead, I hope this format of the Kigali Climate Talks continues to evolve and thrive in 2025. To conclude, I would like to thank our hosts, the School of Architecture and Built Environment at the University of Rwanda, as well as the students who have joined us today. Thank you all for your presence and commitment. Together we can create solutions that work not only for Rwanda, but also for the global community. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Minister, and congratulations on braving the chaos of COP29. I know it can be a tough 2 weeks, and I'm sure we'll hear from Faustin and Ineza and some of the other delegates who were there who will share more. I'm now very pleased to welcome the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to give her remarks. Germany has been a steadfast partner in supporting Rwanda's climate resilience, and we deeply value their ongoing commitment. Please join me in making her feel welcome.
Good morning, guten Morgen, Modao. Thank you so much for this kind introduction. Yeah, it's already the third round of the climate talks. This is quite a success, and I thank you very much for being here, moving out of your comfort zone, and share this morning with us. Honorable Minister, Excellency, the EU Ambassador, representatives of government, civil society, private sector, academia, and of course, special hello to the youth representatives. Yeah, less than 3 weeks ago, COP29 took place in Baku. I haven't been there. Some in the room have been, and I imagine this has been quite something, at least what I read or heard in the media. It was intense, it seems. And shortly before COP29, we came together here to talk about finance. And it's very timely and, a good thing that despite the pre-Christmas frenzy, we are coming here together in a very, still not too far away from COP29 in Baku. For Germany, at COP29, the most important topics were the new collective quantified goal on climate finance, emissions reduction, the implementation of the first global stocktake, climate adaptation, carbon market mechanisms, and the gender action plan. The gender action plan, of course, we have a feminist foreign and development policy in Germany. And I just take a few minutes to share some headlines from the German perspective of COP29. First point, COP29 showed that the energy transition is in full swing worldwide. There was a call on action for no new coal regarding industrial decarbonization. COP29 also showed that the International Climate Club that had been initiated by the Federal Chancellor Scholz under the German G7 presidency in 2022 has developed into an internationally recognized forum. Second point, COP29 highlighted the upcoming NDCs. The minister talked already about it. And this, if you may recall, the NDCs was the topic of our very first Kigali Climate Talks in May 24. So I think we choose the right topics. Yeah, and in order to bring the world onto the envisaged 1.5 degrees path, the new NDCs must significantly increase in ambition. Point 3. As reflected here during the last Kigali Climate Talks, climate finance was at the very core of COP29 negotiations. The decision regarding the new collective quantified goal to triple the international climate finance from $2,000 billion annually to $3,000 billion annually in 2035 is an increase indeed, but it is, and this I think many countries agree, this is falling short of the needs of many a country. Yeah, to sum it up, the results of COP29 can maybe best described as a kind of mixed bag. More efforts are needed to stay on course for achieving the Paris objectives. But there was indeed an agreement, and this as such, you said, collective efforts. Even if imperfect, it shows that multilateralism was working. So, as I said, it's a good thing that we are here together to discuss the outcomes of COP29 and to reflect what it means for climate action in Rwanda. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond COP29, I'm very, very pleased that today's format of the Kigali Climate Talks is a kind of testing a new enlarged format because we have 2 afternoon tracks, a Team Europe Green Diplomacy track and a Youth Dialogue track. On the Team Europe track, as the European Union and the member states are conducting climate negotiations jointly, I'm very pleased that we are conducting a dedicated green diplomacy session today under the leadership of the EU delegation. Muchas gracias, Belen. This session will allow a deep dive into a specific topic, the climate biodiversity nexus. And I think well, last time already the biodiversity was mentioned here in the room, and I know that it's a topic that many people have very close at heart. And the youth dialogue. Dear Ineza, I can't see her, but I can't see anyone, and team at the Green Protector. You have been You have been involved in the international climate negotiations, including COP29 as young negotiators. Your work with the Rwandan youth on the international climate agenda has also been impressive, and the German embassy has been happy to provide support to your Youth Climate Dialogue initiative. Yeah, I am excited that today you are building on that by initiating a youth dialogue track in the afternoon session of the Kigali Climate Talks today. So a particularly warm welcome to the youth participants in today's event, as international climate negotiations and the in-country climate action is about you, it's about your future. I'm pleased to see you here, and I encourage you to stay engaged. And yeah, you have to do so many things right that we, my generation, did wrong. So, in the end, I would just like to express my particular gratitude to Ignace Gattare, the principal of the College of Science and Technology of Rwanda University, and to Josephine Malonza, the Dean of the School of Architecture. This is a wonderful building. I'm really happy that it's kind of tradition that the climate talks take place here. Thank you very much for hosting us yet again. And I'm looking forward to today's exchange. Thank you very much. Muda kuzichane.
Yes, these stairs are quite tough, but for anyone who's wearing high heels and who manages to walk up and down, I should. That's a good challenge, Ambassador. Thank you so much. Thank you for those kind words, and also for Germany's commitment to climate action, both supporting climate action here at home and abroad. As you mentioned, today is an expanded edition of the Kigali Climate Talks with 2 sessions this afternoon. For those with a keen eye, you'll see the European Union logo and also the Green Protector logo up on our green wall as well, and it's such a pleasure to have you join us. We're now going to get into the details of COP29 and what happened. You've heard from the Minister, from the Ambassador, about how challenging these events can be. When you bring together 190 plus countries to agree on 1 or 2 things, it can be a challenge. But the negotiating team from Rwanda and from other countries did a great job. So it's my pleasure now to welcome Faustin Munyazikwiye, the Deputy Director General of the Rwanda Environment Management Authority and Rwanda's lead negotiator to COP29, to share some of the outcomes. Please make him feel welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David, for giving me the floor. Honorable Minister, Excellency Ambassadors here present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As David said, I'm Faustin Munyazikwiye. I'm the Deputy Director General of Rwanda Environment Management Authority and also UNFCCC National Focal Point. Last time, before going to COP29, we gathered in the same room, in this room, and we elaborated more on the expectations of Rwanda towards COP29. So now we are gathered here after 3 weeks of hassles in cold town Baku to wrap up and give you an insight on outcomes of COP29. So when we went to Baku, as highlighted by our minister, we had mainly 3 objectives. The first one was to engage in the climate talks, in the climate change negotiations as a party to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change through different constituents where Rwanda belongs, including least developed countries and African group of negotiators. The second objective we had was to strengthen the partnership we have with different international and regional partners. COP nowadays has been a good networking venue where you seal different deals, where you can meet any partner without necessarily going to his or her respective country. So it was a venue to have bilateral meetings, have participating in different panel discussion, to showcase what Rwanda is doing in terms of climate actions. Last but not least, the objective of the Team Rwanda was to mobilize resources. We are in the convention, and each party has its own obligations, but we know that Rwanda, as one of the developing countries, we have obligations, but we also have, we need to strengthen our capacity so that we can access means of implementation. When you are talking about means of implementation, it's climate finance, climate technology, and capacity building. So we had various engagements in terms of mobilizing resources to allow some activities to take place. So, next slide. After the three main objectives, delegation of Rwanda, we call it Team Rwanda, because that's the uniqueness of Rwanda delegation. When we are at COP venue, we are all Team Rwanda. When you are coming from civil society, private sector, international organization, but based in Rwanda or working with Rwanda from government, we form one team, Team Rwanda. And that's the uniqueness of our delegation, and it has been giving us results from different ends. So we had different bilateral meetings with different countries. Some countries we have existing initiatives and cooperation. Mainly it was to strengthen the cooperation we have. Others were new. We wanted to initiate new ventures. So you can see a good number from Europe to Africa to Asia. You can see different bilateral meetings we had, and now we are in the process of following up the outcomes of those bilateral meetings. We had also different meetings with different partners, especially international partners. As I highlighted, one of the overarching objectives of our delegation is to look for means of implementation. So most of the discussions with different partners were around mobilizing additional resources which will enable us to implement some of the climate actions. We had also different side events organized by the Government of Rwanda, but as communicated last time, we didn't have so many side events planned like in COP28, where we had a full program. Every day we had like 2 side events in our pavilion, but this time around we opted to have a small pavilion just for networking, so that we can prepare a mega event and pavilion in COP30, in COP30, which will take place next year in Brazil. So you can see some pictures of Team Rwanda. When you see Team Rwanda, you can now see that it is composed by different people from NGOs, from private sector, from government. You can also see some of the pictures of negotiators during late nights. And by the way, this COP was not easy. When we were here, we said that it's nicknamed Climate Finance COP. That's what made it hard, especially on the new collective quantified goal. COP was supposed to end Friday on 22nd, but we added around 48 hours of intense negotiations. It ended on 24 on Sunday. And some of the delegations came from the room straight to the airport because most of them had the ticket going back on Sunday. So next, what are the key outcomes? So as highlighted, this COP was Climate Finance COP. The main expectation the whole world had was on climate finance. We had discussion on a new climate finance goal. The next slide. So when we started engaging in the negotiations, we had diverging positions on climate finance, especially on new collective quantified goal, where developing countries, African group, had at least a request of 1.3 trillion US dollars by 2030. Unfortunately, after back and forth, I remember on Friday when the COP was supposed to end, developed countries were at 200. So the additional 2 sleepless nights added 100. So we ended with 300 billion by 2035, which is again thank you very much for clapping. I always say a bad deal is better than no deal. That's how I can summarize the climate finance outcome. A bad deal is better than no deal. Instead of coming back empty-handed, at least we came with a triple of 100 billion we had. But unfortunately, we have been insisting by the 2030, while developed countries were insisting on 2035. Why? Because the experience we had with 100 billion, which was agreed in 2009 and reaffirmed in 2015 when we agreed on Paris Agreement, it was stipulated that by 2020, 100 billion by 2020. Then we waited from 2009 up to 2020. We waited so many years for accountability to developed countries to avail the 100 billion. And unfortunately, they even failed to avail 100 billion by 2020. They only completed their pledge end 2022. So we wanted to avoid the same situation. Adopting a decision which will ask accountability. Now we're in 2024, then we ask accountability after almost 11 years, by 2035. So we wanted to shorten the period, at least by 2030, so that we can be in the position when 2030 reach, we can have the flexibility of putting pressure and at least having a sense of how are they going to deliver on this. Unfortunately, we agreed by 2035, but you can understand the implication of difference by 2030 and by 2035. That's why I said a bad deal is better than no deal. So we had also intense negotiations on carbon market. Since Glasgow, that's when in 2021, that's when we agreed on climate, on carbon market package, on the three mechanisms of Article 6, but the details were not yet agreed upon. So we discussed in the full length on authorization rights from host countries. We discussed on the interoperability of registries, on 6.4, which is an international mechanism on carbon market managed at UNFCCC level. We will have one registry at international level. But on 6.2, which is a cooperative approach, each country will have to manage the whole process of registration, authorization of carbon credits. So each country might choose to have its own registry to facilitate all the transactions, or they can opt to use the international one. So the big discussion was on the interoperability of the national registries and the international registry, because we believe that when you have your own registry, there is a level of confidentiality, there is some information you can put on the international portal, but there is also some information you can keep to yourself. So it was a hard battle to agree on that, but finally, the carbon market package was completely agreed upon. Now we can trade the carbon under 6.2, 6.4, and 6.8. The three mechanisms are now fully operational. Now, we had also intense negotiations related to adaptation. Last year in COP28, we agreed upon on global goal on adaptation indicators, which will be in the global goal on adaptation, which will help us to track how are we building resilience in our different countries and at global level. So we had a set of more than 1,000 indicators. We wanted to narrow them at least to come up with 100 indicators. So the work was not easy, so it will continue even in June during the SBs, June next year. We also had discussion on national adaptation plans, where we agreed on all elements, and all countries who are not yet submitting their national adaptation plans were requested to do so not later than December 2025. On transparency is vital. As you all know, with Paris Agreement, we changed the approach. Now it's bottom up. We tender our contribution through NDCs. Our pledge our commitment in reducing emissions, we tender it through the NDC. So we wanted to have a robust transparency framework so that we can know who is doing what and when in terms of achieving the overarching target of Paris Agreement, which is limiting the increase of mean temperature to 2 degrees Celsius with the effort to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we agreed on Baku Global Climate Transparency Platform, but countries were encouraged as well to submit their biennial transparency reports, where 13 countries have already submitted when we went to COP, and here Rwanda also is completing our biennial transparency report, and we are planning to submit it by the 3rd week of December. On loss and damage, we had great achievement in COP28 last year, where the fund on loss and damage were adopted and some pledges. So for Baku, we wanted to fully operationalize all the bodies around loss and damage. We have Santiago Network on loss and damage, which is supposed to provide technical assistance to countries, creating readiness of countries so that they can access funds from loss and damage fund. So at Baku, we agreed on operationalization of most of the bodies, including the loss and damage fund, and we saw different pledges, additional pledges, and we reached 759 million US dollars pledged. But as you can see, comparing to the pledge we had last year, it's like it's a drop in the sea. Our expectations was at least to triple the pledge of 700 million US dollars of last year, at least to triple that. But unfortunately, we didn't even double. It was just a small amount added. And it was very critical, especially when you see the political landscape at international level with different uncertainties coming from different developed countries due to the new leadership, which will come with new ideas, new direction. So we wanted to maximize at COP29 all the pledges and all the mechanisms related to finance. Otherwise, 2025, 2026, there are so many uncertainties looking at the political landscape at international level. Next slide. To sum up, COP went well, but as I said, a bad deal is better than no deal. We are going to work with what we have, but the most important is to keep engaging at multilateral level and also at bilateral level. So how will COP29 inform the development of Rwanda's new climate action plan? As Minister said, now we embarked on development of NDC 3.0, which we have an ambitious target to conclude all the process of consultation, development of different chapters by end of Feb. So we are busy working. We had generous support from ND's partnership. We have the support of World Bank, we have the support of GIZ, we have the support of WRI, especially on consultations. We have a good number of partners, international partners who are coming on board to support this journey. So we agreed that we are going to make a pool of or a package to deliver on on our NDC 3.0, so that whoever who wish to support that journey can be accommodated. So we are confident that we are going to deliver on that ambitious target. We are also working on the National Adaptation Plan, which, as I highlighted, all countries has the deadline of next year, December 2025, and we are working with GCF to conclude on our NAP so that we can submit it at least at the end of the second quarter of the year. Again, we are building on national efforts for transparency under the Enhanced Transparency Framework to make sure that even though we don't have a lot of emissions, but we need at least to lead by example and having that transparency. We have now a GHG inventory platform where everyone can go and see. We have a robust MRV, measuring, reporting, and verification, which is helping us not only to respond to the obligations of the convention, but also helping us to make a case when we are developing different proposals to mobilize resources, showing that this is where we are in terms of reducing emissions, and this is where we are heading. So, Honorable Minister, Excellence Ambassadors, it is not easy to summarize what happened in the 3 weeks in the Baku, but we had a good communication team. Most of you have been seeing different tweets, different updates of what Team Rwanda is doing on a daily basis. So thank you for those one who liked, who retweeted. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, DDG Faustin. One key takeaway I heard is that COP30 will be, was it a mega event for Rwanda? So I think that's a task for all of us to prepare well in advance, and I think today's event is putting us on the road to Berlin. It's now my pleasure to move us into the next section of our event, which is a panel discussion with some experienced, skilled, and distinguished panelists. We're privileged to have them share their invaluable insights on COP29, particularly in the areas of climate finance, youth engagement, and the role of the private sector. I would also like to encourage you to make them feel welcome as they make their way to the stage. First, I would like to invite the European Ambassador to Rwanda to join us on the stage. If you could take the second chair, thank you. Please. We have a cable right here, so thank you, Ambassador. I'd now like to welcome Doreen Orishaba, the Managing Director of Basigo, to join us, who will be speaking on the private sector's role. And finally, I'd like to invite Grace Ineza, CEO of the Green Protector, to join us on the panel. We'll also be joined by Lorraine Manzi in a few minutes. She just got stuck with some of the road closures for FIA, but we will make a start. So please feel welcome. Thank you. I hope everyone can hear us well, especially those who have joined on the live stream. So we're going to hopefully have an engaging discussion today. I'm really honored to share the stage with these amazing representatives from the EU, from Basigo, and from the Green Protector. Grace and I have been attending COPs for many years now, and the fact that she's still smiling after COP29 shows me that she has the determination and grit that Faustine and others have as well. As we wait for Lorraine, I would like to turn to you, Ambassador, to hear the EU's perspective on COP29. It was an interesting and a different COP, I think, for many reasons, with a particular focus on climate finance. How do you see the EU's perspective on the outcomes, particularly related to climate action and the energy transition?
So thank you very much, and Honourable Minister, Ambassador of Germany, and Dr. Faustine, and the great members that are here with the panel this morning, David, and the all climate committed partners sitting here and watching us online. It really is a great pleasure to be here this morning and to be reflecting on Baku. Even if I was not in Baku, there was a very big European Union delegation and EU member states delegation there that I'm sure some of you met there. So COP, we met here years before COP, and we said this would be the COP of climate finance. So what we can now say is that it will be remembered as the start of the new era of climate finance. And I think there were two figures that came out of the negotiations after strenuous negotiations, and parentheses. In my brief, I saw that the last day negotiation ended, at Dr. Faustine said, at 5:31 in the morning.
Exactly.
After 2 additional days, which really reflect well the intensity of the work and the difficulties in some of those negotiations.
Absolutely.
So the outcome, I think we can summarize on the climate finance aspect that we're talking about with 2 new numbers. One was the call upon all actors to scale up the sources of finance for developing countries to at least 1.3 trillion euros by 2035. And then a new goal on providing and mobilizing a 3 billion per year by 2035 for developing countries, with developing countries partners taking the lead. I mention these 2 figures because both matter. And as Faustine was saying, it's tripling the public financing contribution to the climate agenda, but it also brings a matter of fairness and important to us, which is about the ability of those who are able to contribute to also contribute on a voluntary basis. And for us, that's important in seeking into the 1.35 billion euros that we are mentioning. We also see that it was the first time that the role of the multilateral development banks supporting the transition comes in. And this matters because we see it as a great enabler for private sector to kick in as a multiplier in the support to the climate finance agenda. So for us, these were some of the key also highlights that we would like to bring in, as we know that this fell short of ambition for some, but we see these as needed, realistic, achievable, and ambitious targets. And I think, we hope, we will endeavor to make this a tale of delivery. So we will be working in that space.
Great.
On mitigation, I would perhaps summarize it. We said a bad deal was better than a deal. For us, it was less on mitigation. It was less than we would have liked it, but better than we had feared. And I think that is also a good summary on how we saw the outcome. So we are looking forward to redoubling the efforts to COP30, to the road to Belém, and we all need to come to Belém with an ambitious new NDCs 3.0. So that's why the EU joined a group of very ambitious countries, and I think there we are looking to the eyes with Rwanda. We are working together in a very progressive agenda, and it's an intention to present the 1.4 in NDC next year, setting the bar for other countries. The Commission and the Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance also announced a partnership on transition away from fossil fuels, which for us was a very important also outcome. Also the new methane abatement partnership roadmap, which also has an impact here, and we will be working here together with government. We saw it also as a way to further accelerate the reduction of emissions coming from methane. So something perhaps we can still work together.
That's great.
Perhaps I will add, yes, 3 additional points beyond the climate and the mitigation is the carbon market and Article Point C, which was a historical conclusion of the rule book for carbon markets after a decade of negotiations. And I think we have now the trusted rules, the common playing field that we were talking about for international carbon markets. And this, we thought, will drive investment, raise the level of ambition too, and a key element to work together. On the biennial transparency report, we joined Rwanda in this commitment to transparency. Transparency is a way to monitor the outcome and the road to ambition. And the EU submitted a BTR already now as a way to showcase a partnership. And last element, it was on the work plan on gender and climate, which for us is also a very key element and contribution to an ambitious agenda for all.
Great. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for highlighting those points. What I'm taking from your message is that COP29 really reinforced this idea that it needs an all-hands-on-deck approach, particularly when it comes to climate finance. And I think the $1.3 trillion goal is an example of that, where it's not just the traditional donors, it's also others who are able to do so, but bringing in the private sector through the multilateral development banks. And as the Minister mentioned, some of those MDBs have come together to commit 120 billion annually by 2035, which is good progress. I want to turn now to Ineza. As I mentioned, you are, despite your young age, you're a veteran. You're a veteran of the COP process, and I'm happy that you're still smiling. What was the message that young people, you with the Green Protector, were part of the Rwanda delegation, what was the message you took to COP, and what's the message you're taking away from your time in Baku?
Thank you. Is it working? Oh, yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think for me, I will start by just highlighting the fact that when Rwanda said they have young people on board and be present at COP is really a unique aspect that only Rwanda has, because we as young people, we are there with a sense of being like a kind of a driving force, a force of hope and ambition, and a little bit of an ability to learn how we can change the multilateral process for concrete action. And with our country climate change policy, you can see it. That is really a key factor to train young people to be able to carry the country priorities in different thematics that we are engaged in, and you're able to come back home with the sense that we have something to do and something we can contribute to. And I think I am one of the many other young people, and as DDG mentioned, it's a kind of an intense scope, but it tends to be less intense when you are having a team, because you're able to have an ability to rely on different aspects of what is moving forward. And to mention a few, we have young people who are engaged in different items, like carbon market, loss and damage, climate finance. I am the one following loss and damage, to mention a few. And it's kind of, if I can summarize like a little bit of what we brought to COP29 with, especially from a message that we gathered from the Youth Climate Talks or dialogue that we had, was the fact that we wanted COP29 to be a pillar of trust, a pillar of action, yes. But then the outcome is not giving us that ability to believe. But the good thing that I like is to say that most of the time this multilateral process fails us in terms of giving us, you know, like when kids are playing and then they're like, I want a car, you give it like a tall car, and then you don't give a truck, like you have to mention. And then for also young people, when we are in this process, we just want tangible hope, we want tangible concrete action. And sometimes we've been trained, especially with our government, to learn to embrace the process and learn to embrace the fact that it's going to be very challenging and very demanding, but one thing that is not failing on a daily basis, the commitment of young people, because we have this phrase that we like to say, is that we engage the international process with the ambition to generate concrete action on national level, with the sense that we are not going to blame any past mistakes. So we don't blame. We just want to showcase how solution can and should be done, and we're not failing to try. And with the support that we are having, we keep trying, and guess what? Sometimes we are winning, and that's why when we hear that a bad deal is better than a no deal, we understand what it means, because it means that we have some more homework to do, and actually there's something else we can be able to bring on the table. And then coming up for loss and damage, for example, loss and damage is one of the key things that we wanted to see as an outcome. Now I'm being biased because I'm from loss and damage. But because when you hear like our country is losing 3% of GDP just because of a flooding that happened, you just want to ensure that your country is going to be able to be resilient in a good manner. But we don't have that yet. But then we are trying to learn on where are we right now and how can we learn to move forward. For example, there's an immense opportunity of starting to have our academia learning on how they can register to be researchers on loss and damage, so that this capacity building in the next 5 years, the next 3 years, it can be owned by us, by Rwandans, by young people.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ineza. Thank you for balancing your sense of hope and optimism with the reality of these climate negotiations, and for leading your team at the Green Protector. We really appreciate it. Lorraine, I wanted to turn to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and battling through some road closures. Okay, we appreciate it. I think COP can be a bit like that.
Absolutely.
There can be roadblocks in your way. You're from the Rwanda Green Fund and work as a climate finance analyst. COP29, while it didn't achieve all of the objectives that many countries hope for, it did triple climate finance from 100 billion per annum to 300 billion. What do you think the implication of this tripling of finance means for a country like Rwanda and for the Rwanda Green Fund? How do you put this into context of Rwanda's efforts to mobilize and implement climate action?
Absolutely. Thank you, David, and apologies for being late. I think I will actually start on, build up on what Ineza said. She did say that a bad deal is better than a no deal. And the tripling of the ambition and the contribution for climate finance globally for countries like Rwanda is definitely something that's encouraging, but also puts us in a position where looking at this strategy of combining both public funds and private funds at the same time, it means that most of the country, first of all, access to finance has definitely increased because it's tripled, but in terms of the way countries access it, it then relates to the institutional framework that they have in place to position themselves to be able to access the funding. So in the case of Rwanda, with the Rwanda Green Fund, that's already being ahead of the curve because we've positioned ourselves in a manner that allows us to tap a lot more into the existing funds out there. However, the funding, the strategy being private funding, being crowded in a lot more means strengthening the already existing frameworks as well, right? And I think we've already started working on it with facilities like Ireme Invest, where you use blended finance from public and private capital and allow private sector engagement to increase a lot more. So I think definitely the tripling is a good thing, and we're doing the work, and definitely trying to always be ahead of the curve in figuring out how to tap into a lot more climate finance and bringing it in the country. But beyond also the tripling of the contribution, there is also the operationalization of carbon markets, which also means increasing and strengthening and improving the investment framework that we have in the country to tap into the goal, the 300 billions that we're committed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. One of the things that I find interesting in what you said is countries like Rwanda have been working to build the frameworks, the systems, through the Rwanda Green Fund, through accreditation. And Rwanda is a bit ahead of the curve. And now there's going to be a shift to crowding in more private finance. And that requires us to be ready for that. So I think that's an important point, particularly for those who are joining us from the private sector, to understand their role in it. And I'm really pleased that Doreen is here with us from Basigo. In past COPs, we've heard lots about mobility. I think it was Glasgow where Rwanda joined a declaration to phase out ICE vehicles from 2040 or to stop selling them. Even Rwanda has ambitious goals to make 20% of its public transport fleet electric by 2030. And I remember when this discussion began, the thought was it almost seems impossible. Right? It seems impossible, and then it seems impossible until it's done. And so we're seeing lots of great articles about Basigo in the news and the work that you're doing to expand clean mobility here. How do you see these kinds of declarations, these kinds of outcomes, increasing finance? How do you see that from the private sector perspective? Does it give you confidence to keep investing?
Thank you, David. Absolutely, it does. And I would like to, first of all, congratulate Team Rwanda for all the efforts that you're putting in to mobilize more finance, and specifically Rwanda Green Fund. I'm proud to say that as Basigo, we appreciate Rwanda Green Fund for channeling some of the investment into Basigo. Thank you for helping us be able to now work on expanding our charging network. As Basigo and on behalf of the private sector, we are really a mission-driven entity. And our dream, like you said, sometimes it starts like a dream. And our vision really is to enable the transition of public transport from diesel-fueled vehicles to electric vehicles. And we are proud that right now we are taking the lead as far as Rwanda is concerned. We've been piloting 6 electric buses here in Kigali, and we already have one that's running the intercity routes. And yeah, it sounds like a small number, but our principle usually is go in small, start small, learn, collect data, and then be able to scale from there. And I'm glad to say that we are poised to scale at the moment.
Fantastic.
We've already placed in an order that we will be seeing more electric buses on the road. So
Fantastic.
What do all these declarations and the mobilization of finance speak to the private sector? I can't tell you how encouraging it is, because at the end of the day, while Rema Green Fund, Rwanda as a altogether we've collected this money, it needs to be put to use. Allow me to borrow a few words from one of the Formula One teams. I mean, we are hosting the FIA Awards.
That's the season.
Today, actually.
Exactly.
So allow me to borrow words from Mercedes, where they were sending off Lewis, and they're like, every dream needs a team. And Rwanda has a dream. Even before Basigo existed, there was the dream to, to reduce the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions by 38% by 2030. And I guess the question was, how is that going to happen? And Basigo, we saw that as a way to, tap into that, because we exist purely to be able to support and help, alleviate the climate crisis that's happening. Transport has been identified as a contributor of over 40% as far as, pollution is concerned. So we as Basigo, seeing all these initiatives that the government is putting in place, we realize that this is really a way to, be able to contribute to that dream. So Rwanda, you have part of the people to help this make this dream come to pass. we have Basigo, we have other e-mobility players that are around us to be able to support that. And at the end of the day, it's going to be, for us, it's really about impact. And as the private sector, it really gives us the motivation to continue to say, okay, what other initiatives are there that we can develop to continue to be mission aligned?
Absolutely.
Additionally, I think as the private sector, we are also given the drive to continue and mobilize, not leaving the job of mobilization just to the government, but I think as the private sector, we also, you know, with all the initiatives that are being put in place, we are given the confidence to go ahead and mobilize more investment. As Basigo, right now, we are headquartered in Nairobi, but we are also running here in Rwanda. And this October, we're able to raise $42 million US to be able to progress the deployment of electric buses. So we really exist to address 4 key challenges that hinder the adoption of the electric bus within East Africa and Africa altogether. One, it's the lack of charging infrastructure. So this money that we collect, it helps us be able to deploy and expand the charging network, the deployment of buses. Of course, for anyone who knows the electric vehicle sector, the electric vehicle version is going to be about 2 to 4 times more expensive than the alternative fuel-driven vehicle. However, we know that the total cost of ownership, the benefits are going to pay off over the life of that vehicle. So it's important that we be able to do that. So as Basigo, we come in and say, okay, how do we make the adoption of that electric bus viable and you know, more attractive? We do that through financing, through a model that we call pay as you drive, and in that way we bring down the cost of the electric bus and make it possible for the private sector, the operators to be able to afford that bus by paying for it as they drive based on the mileage that they run. The third element that we address, the third issue that we address is service and maintenance. Of course, this being a new technology, even as we were starting out in Rwanda, there was that question of, but what will I do with the bus if anything happens to it? So as Basigo, we set up a service and maintenance department, we train our team, we set up inventory, we set up like a fully fledged center to be able to attend to the service and maintenance requirements of this. So the operators never ever have to worry, what will I do if the battery, you know, fails? What will I do if, you know, the motor is not working? Those are burdens that we take off the shoulders of the operators. And the first thing is to get the right product for the market. You know, Rwanda has its own unique needs. I don't know if when you hear about electric vehicles or buses, I don't know the first question that comes to your mind. But when we're doing our market survey, the very first thing that everyone always asked was, are you sure that bus is going to go up the hill? That was going to be your first question?
Exactly.
I'm happy to let you know that exactly this week we've made 1 year of operation here in Kigali. And yeah, for 1 year, these buses have proven that we can go up the hills.
They can go up the hills.
We're really thankful
Fantastic.
for that. And if it brings you any comfort, we've actually already been testing outside of Kigali. We've driven to Musanze. And for us, if the bus can go to Musanze, then it can go anywhere.
Absolutely.
We've driven to Nyanza, we've driven to Nyagatare, we've driven to... yes, Rusizi is the next one.
It's the next challenge from the minister.
Yeah, so as we expand our charging network, Rusizi is the next one. But from the data that we've gathered, now that we've covered Musanze, Rusizi is definitely going to be a walk in the park as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so absolutely. As we continue to see all these initiatives, you know, the finance being mobilized, and the government continue to say, okay, effective, I think January 1st, no more non-electric motorcycles being allowed to, you know, operate. In Kigali, we're hoping that the next is going to be no more non-electric buses as well. So really that just speaks to the readiness of the country to support the initiatives of the private sector, but also it boosts our confidence for the recognition to be able to do that. And our payback is making these initiatives work, building the right capacity to be able to run these initiatives, continue to attract more investment. Of the 42 million that I highlighted, a big chunk of that is coming to Kigali because it's been raised as both debt and equity.
Okay.
And over 7.5 million has been earmarked specifically for Rwanda as debt from BII.
Okay. That's...
German Embassy of the German Embassy, I hope that says something.
It's great to see that support. Thank you so much, Doreen. One of the things that I really like about what you said is I guess, the ambition to prove to Rwandans that the bus can go up the hill to get to Musanze is a great one. And I think I would like to turn now back to the ambassador. Rwanda and many countries around the world have ambitious climate action plans, whether it's about transitioning their fleet, whether it's about stopping to register petrol-powered motors from next year for public transport in Kigali. These are some bold initiatives that will require significant financial support and potentially a shift in how climate finance is managed. I think at COP29 we saw that shift starting to happen. Given that the EU is the largest contributor to climate finance, how do you see the climate finance landscape after this year, into 2025 and beyond, taking into consideration some of the changes that are happening across many developed countries?
Yeah, thank you very much. It really is very inspiring what I hear from my fellow members of the panel, and I can't wait to take the Basiko bus going to Musanze, where we will reflect together on how to best work together as Team Europe on climate finance, also in Rwanda. So, Minister, I think we should take the bus together and do that reflection on how Team Europe we can be your best support in this context. Perhaps one broad element, and then we'll land in Rwanda, I think, on Team Europe. So, indeed, the EU is proud to say that we are the biggest climate finance contributor. We contributed already before with 400 million euros to the Lausanne fund before, so already more than half. So we've been constantly and consistently showing ambition and showing commitment to it. More needs to be done, indeed, but we are there in that journey of working together in that space. I spoke before on the importance of opening also the space out of fairness to others who can contribute to climate finance and to make everybody's engagement part of this journey. We also spoke about multilateral banks coming in and private sector, and I think that's where we can and we should be engaging more on how we collectively are going to do risk investment, are going to bring investment in the conditions needed. And that's where Rwanda is leading the way by showing ambition, a great level of ambition with great new tools, the climate finance new strategy, but also your IREME fund, the climate fund, such a number of tools that come in to show the way on how we can engage together in this journey. That's where we also come as Team Europe, so every dream needs a team. So we are here in Rwanda, we make an offer as Team Europe. We're working already in greening our policies, the same way the government is greening the budget, is greening procurement, is greening, you're showing also the lead in that, and that's very commendable. So we also been working together on climate smart agriculture as a key way to showcase that we can green the work and we can pay a particular attention to the climate impact of some of our policy work. And that I think is very remarkable. And together we were engaging in this policy space this week precisely on how to do more in that space. Beginning of next year, we will be coming in with a reflection on how to engage with innovative financing tool, with green bonds, and this is something we want to bring in the table beginning of next year as a way to see how to do better with new financing tools. Team Europe also has been very supportive to IREME as being one of the avenues. This is, yes, some ideas and niches and opening, but of course what the COP29 tells us is that we have the ambition and the joint aspiration to be doing more, and we are committed in that space.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ambassador. I want to turn back to you, Lorraine. Having been at COP with you and with Ineza as well, I saw the work that you did in the negotiation room, you know, sitting through, contributing, listening. Obviously, the deal that was achieved was not maybe what everyone wanted, but it was a deal, which is good progress. What would you say is your key takeaway personally from the COP process? And what do you see as the road towards Belém?
Thanks, David. Definitely. So I'm a novice in terms of negotiations, and I definitely learn a lot from my colleagues, Ineza, DDG, and everyone else when it comes to negotiations. And it's not as straightforward as I thought it would be. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of negotiations. And when it comes to the key outcomes, the tripling of the contribution and the commitments from different contributers, the operationalization of the carbon market, there's the methane agreement, etc. It definitely speaks a lot to what we need to do on our side, again, to position ourselves to tap into what's already being committed out there. I think Rwanda has always been advanced when it comes to its climate ambition, but now these new commitments now speak to how do we then strengthen and then tap into even more that's being committed out there. For the road to Belém, I'm hoping to see a lot more, and again, it's negotiations, and it's easy to say, oh, we need to come together and push forward the 1.3 trillion by 2035, and I think this is something that developing countries will definitely benefit a lot more from, and I think this is one of the key corners, especially for the developing countries, for us to actually say, we have to, stand by it and push for it, and I hope to see other contributors being a bit more open and receptive to what we're pushing and the agendas that we're pushing from that perspective. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lorraine. I think it would be great to see that over the year ahead. One thing you mentioned is that as these sources of finance change and as these new innovations come about, Rwanda may need to think about, and maybe the Green Fund, think about how it positions itself to access that finance. Can you give us a hint of maybe what that might look like?
No, absolutely. So with the Rwanda Green Fund, I think initiatives like Ireme Invest, it's actually very encouraging to see, Basigo being present here and what they've been able to do ever since we started working together, especially in Rwanda. Their presence is quite strong in Kenya, but in Rwanda, it's quite new. And the Rwanda Green Fund being a partner in establishing this proof of concept, they've been able to go up the hill for a year now. It's really a good way it's a good example of what the Rwanda Green Fund is capable of achieving if we could have more Basigos in different sectors, right? So the Rwanda Green Fund, what we're trying to do is we're coming up with a new strategy of how to actually strengthen private investment and crowding for companies like Basigo. And one thing that I'm hoping to see in the next coming few years is once we've established a strategy, we hope to see more, basically, how do we blend so that more 7.5 million could actually come into Rwanda and scale up initiatives like this one. So that's really what I'm hoping for. The Rwanda Green Fund with its strategy, once we start implementing it, we're hoping to increase private sector contribution to climate finance in Rwanda by 3, actually. So hopefully we also manage that as well.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
It's a tripling objective. A year of tripling, fantastic. That's a big ambition as well. Doreen, I'd like to come back to you, and thank you so much, Lorraine. And as Doreen ponders this question, I'd also like to invite our audience to think about your questions, especially those who are joining us online as well. Feel free to tweet using the hashtags Green Rwanda or Kigali Climate Talks, or if you're watching on YouTube, please use the chat feature to ask some questions. We'll come to the audience in just a moment. Doreen, I'd like to ask you, what would it take to see more Basigos? What would it take? You've been driving uphill, as Lauren said, for one year. What would it take for that road to be flat and and straight for other companies. What more can we do from the outcomes of COP to innovate and build partnerships to enable more Basigos to come into the country?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. One, it's going to be continuing to, for the country like Rwanda, and we know they are committed, continuing to create that enabling environment in terms of policy, in terms of availing the finance, in terms of collaboration, and it will be great to ensure that even for the existing Basigos, we do not continue to operate in silos. I think the one thing that we want to continue to enhance is collaboration between the existing Basigos, and paving really way for the next Basigos. Collaboration between the private sector, the Basigos, and the other government institutions as well. So for example, thinking about Basigo itself, it's going to be how do we collaborate with REMA, how do we collaborate with the Ministry of Environment, how do we collaborate with the Ministry of Infrastructure, so that the dreams are not in silos. There's no double work that's being done, or there's no frustration in one corner, yet there is a corner that's able to, be able to support that. The other key thing is going to be how do we collaboratively, develop more innovative initiatives. How do we build the capacity to be able to run that? How do we create the platforms for collaboration also at an international scale? So when I think about elements like carbon market participation, we are in the renewable energy sector as well. How do we work together, or how does REMA make this possible for the Basigos to be able to get good deals? And not no deals, but great deals, and not bad deals as well when it comes to the carbon market. How do we support other Basigos to, or really just looking at the entire ecosystem in terms of, okay, if there is a Basigo, what happens at the end of life of that Basigo? So when I think about batteries, how do we support entities that are going to think about recycling or second use of those batteries? So it's really, I can just summarize it by saying, really creating that enabling environment to be able to, enable that ecosystem as an entire, system, not just one piece of what this looks like.
Much. And it's great to hear you talk about ecosystem, because I think we have the ecosystem on the stage before us. Minister, you've given Basigo and Doreen the challenge to take a bus to Rusizi, and I think Doreen has given the ministry and REMA and all partners in the sector the challenge to boost the ecosystem with continued forward-thinking policy. I'd like to turn now to Grace, and then we'll go back to the audience. Grace, the Green Protector has been running youth climate dialogues, which have been a key component of bringing together Rwanda's position ahead of COP29. What role do you think those youth dialogues had in bringing Rwanda's position to COP29? And what is the work that you're planning to do from COP29 beyond this afternoon's youth dialogue? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I can answer that question using a little bit of a short story, if I may. So because the Green Protector started as the Green Fighter, and we started here at the University of Rwanda, and we were engaging to be a platform where young people can discuss and learn on how to engage on climate and environment protection on 3 pillars: education, action, and engagement into the negotiation process. And it was, I think, in 2018 when we first started to engage in the COP. That was our first COP, me and my colleague. We were 3 at that time. And with the spirit of being able to learn where are the opportunities, where are the challenges, and where are the gaps, and how can we bring a more robust force back home. And we started the process of trying to talk with the fellow other young people, because we believe that when young people are exchanging and we learn, that's where innovation starts, and that's where ignite ideas came in. And I think it was when one of our colleagues attended her first COP in Glasgow, and she came back with one question, which was like, where is the platform where we can learn about climate policy, so that we can know who to ask questions, and the other young people know how to engage. And with that, asking that question, we applied, like the rules of don't accuse, don't complain, don't blame, find a solution with a long-term impact. And I think that's where the youth dialogue started. And in the last 3 years, we've been able to be financially supported by the Germany embassy, which allowed us to grow on different aspects. For example, we've been able to grow in the ability to start venture ourselves in creating a policy brief of like a country position on different items before a negotiation, which is also allowing us to showcase the ability of young people and young experts, because I think some of us are getting no longer to be young people, but we are also young experts, to be able to be a kind of a tangible force that is helping our country. And we've been also able to learn on how we as young Rwandans, we can take the opportunity we have to be in a country where when we say youth active participation is not tokenistic, how can we elevate the role of our country in bringing a driving force on the international level, especially by showcasing that it actually works when you work with young people, because young people are able to be action takers and they're active stakeholders. I think that has been able to showcase some of tangible success that you can see, because we have some of our young experts or youth people, because they're all below 35. They're doing something that are really remarkable, making like putting Rwanda on the map in the negotiation process. But we've been also trying to go in deep, because most of the time when we are trying to think about how can you do a strategic advocacy to elevate the voice of the community, you need also to think about those other young people who are not here. And we've been able to venture with one of our partners to go now in depth, like having a similar of a youth climate dialogue or the youth climate talk, Kigali talk, but now in districts, and then with the other youth organization and the young actors and the local institutions and government institutions. And now we are also venturing ourselves to do this in Kenya, Rwanda. It's very challenging, but we are learning because we don't want to, that what we are trying to do is like we are trying to breed the next generation of Rwandans, not to start where we started, but start a little bit higher. So like trying to breed those steps. And I'm very grateful for the team that we have, because they are very comfortable to spend 18 hours a day in a 24 hours and trying to think on what can we do. And then all of that in a short is like to say that youth engagement and young expert engagement in the climate environmental policy is not a fashion. It's not, I'm going to get there to get a picture. It's much more of understanding that we are very much privileged to be part of a bigger team that is helping us to be the driving force of developing our community and our country to be climate resilient, and in a manner that is allowing ourselves to also be part of a solution. And anything that can speak much for young people is knowing that you are part of a solution, a tangible solution. Absolutely. So that's why we are not afraid to sweat ourselves outside.
Urakoze cyane neza.
Thank you.
Turabashimiye cyane. I would now like to turn to you, to our audience, both those who are online joining us on YouTube, on the Ministry's YouTube channel, but also those in the audience. We have some microphones available from the team, so if you have a question, now I'd like to ask you to raise your hand. Please stand up and introduce yourself, where you're from, your name and position, and keep your question brief. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Virgile Kwizera. I am from JICA Rwanda office, in charge of water supply and sanitation. First of all, I would like to thank all the team in Rwanda who went to COP29. The Deputy DG Rema and the team, you did the big work and the big job. You might say that you've done a deal which you qualify somehow, but I think you did a big job to stand there and do something that is to appreciate. Yeah, my comment or my input is the stakeholders in the climate and the environment, mainly I was talking with country director for Water for People, who was saying that in water and sanitation sector working group, there are many partners who are not participating in this interesting dialogue. And as you mentioned, on the bus goes, on buses, I think those buses are using energy, and if you're talking about energy, is REG, and the REG is using probably water resources. WASAC, I wanted to get some water to supply to people, and Rwanda Agriculture Board is also seeking on how to manage the irrigation. So I think if it would be possible, you could invite them not to sit here, but to sit there. Then they say what they think after the big work you've done. I was checking on the website of Climate Change Rwanda. There are many documents, and the language of from all of you, especially Faustin, it's quite interesting, and it could be interesting if all those people are understanding the same language and really follow you, and if possible, you are talking about negotiations. Maybe people here, like some people are saying, what are conditions to negotiate? How do you apply to be a negotiator?
Sure.
So maybe it could help to take all people on the board and insert also the carbon market, which are in many books, many good documents, but it seems like many implementers are not doing it. What is required to do it so that everything is synchronized? Otherwise, we will be having a good discussions here, which are not going, and who are really using the environment. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much for that great suggestion. There's another question just from in front of you. Please stand up and introduce your name and your position. Thank you.
My name is Samuel Madul. I'm the Chief of Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, UNICEF Rwanda. I will not repeat the thanks for your good work, but I will ask a question from Basiko. Initiatives fail when you don't look into assumptions that are coming up. So you have talked of charging infrastructure. Are you focusing on the national grids, or you are looking at alternative energy? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. As we wait for others, maybe Doreen, we can hand over to you to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. At the moment, thanks to what we've realized is really a very stable grid, so big congratulations to REG, EUCL, and the government at large. We are heavily relying on the grid at the moment. And also this is because the buses, I call them monsters, they're huge, because the battery packs are really heavy, and that means the chargers to also support them, they are power thirsty chargers. So yes, there's alternatives that we could use, but because of the requirement for the high power, at the moment we're entirely relying on REG. And of course, the fact that the Rwanda grid is about 58% renewable, that's really encouraging on our end. And we're estimating that through that partnership, where for every bus that we put on the road, because of that, that higher renewable energy percentage, we're mitigating about 30 tons per year per bus because of that.
That's huge. Congratulations. I think that deserves a round of applause. I think we have a question up towards the back. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. This is Francis Kamanzi from mining sector. So it's a pleasure to be part of the climate talk, because when you talk about climate, mining is number one. Mining across the globe has been found to be among the leading players of damaging our climate. So being from the Rwanda mining, gas, and the petrol, we play a leading role in the climate. So being part of the talk is a good pleasure to me. because we happen to be on the upstream point of the climate. So whatever talks we are happening, we should put in consideration that mining is there and spoiling our climate. So how can we address the challenges that are being faced in mining? Our sister has been talking about the EVs and the infrastructure. Going the green, you need the mining. Because most of these vehicles we are talking about, they use the minerals to do the battery and all the like. So I was urging the players, whatever is being happening, whatever programs are taken, the mining sector should be among the players. Because the mining we have the minerals, we have the quarries, we have the gas and petrol, and all these are affecting our climate. If we are not doing the responsible part of mining, our climate will always be affected. We also have the part of the geohazards. The landslides, the earthquake, the volcanicity, all these are affecting our climate in one way or another. So whatever programs are being taken, I think the environment people should consider mining. Help us to mine responsibly so that we can protect our environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's great to hear. Just before we move to the next question, I'd like to hand over to the ambassador to respond to that. Thank you.
Dear CEO, dear Francis, thank you very much for this question, because indeed, or this comment, because indeed, mining is one of the essential contributors for building a green transition. We need the minerals, we need those transformed minerals to be able to build that green transition. And in parallel, there's a work to do to ensure sustainable mining. So this is to actually commit and to be that we are partners, so we are in the same thing in building this green mining and ensuring that mining can contribute to the green transition.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Our next question, please stand and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. My name is Amani Mabano. I am from the AUKUS network. It is a regional NGO that is involved in the conservation of biodiversity and development of beneficiaries of the project that are implemented by the organization. So we would like to congratulate the Team Rwanda that went to COP29 in Baku, and we would also like to inform the people gathered here that AUKUS is leading restoration and conservation of biodiversity in mountainous regions across Africa, and it was awarded with the King Albert Mountain Award 2024 in Geneva, Switzerland. But we noted that during the COP29, mountains are not clearly captured on the agenda of the COP. And Rwanda, as a country nicknamed a country of 1,000 hills, I think that for the next time, the mountains should be clearly mentioned, that they need special attention when it comes to climate action, because we all are here, I think that we know the importance of mountain ecosystems, like for instance, a lot of water coming from them, like being home to about 15% of the global human population, and 50% of the global biodiversity hotspots are found in the mountains.
Absolutely.
So for the next time, please, Team Rwanda, go with that homework that mountains should be showcased.
Thank you so much.
The agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw Ineza desperately trying to get my attention, and I was actually going to turn to you as well. So, Ineza, would you like to respond?
I can try to answer. because in the process of having the first round of the global stocktake, there was like this mention that mountains should be highly recognized, especially around their vulnerability. And Africa, as one of the continent where there's a lot of mountains, the discussion continued. And I think at COP29 there was a kind of a decision that's going to be like a way to find attribution on how mountains and vulnerability of people in the mountain, around the mountain, can have like a place in the climate change discussion. However, there's a need to consider that some of this discussion, not everything is going to be fitting within the UNFCCC. There's also like a need to understand there's some way to strategically align yourself and finding a space to have a common voice where it can make sense. And for example, when we're talking about loss and damage, about the vulnerability, we keep in mind that we are talking about the mountains and the landslide and the people around it, and this sometimes is recognized as the non-economic loss and damage, but there's an opportunity to elevate the agenda of mountain in the CBD, and I think that's one of the efforts that is going around, but because the CBD is the Convention on Biodiversity that happens every 2 years. That's the space where we're trying to also elevate the fact that the mountains and the economic cost of it should be reflected, the biodiversity of it, the people around it, and also the fact that the livelihood of some of the community is really dependent on these mountains. So that would be like a short answer I can answer. There to say like we didn't forget it, it's just there somehow.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ineza. We have time for one or two more questions. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Witije from the University of Rwanda, Department of Mechanical and Energy Engineering. And I thank those people contributing to the finance of climate action. Finance is really the blood behind the body. And this time I want to advocate for the money for research. We really need quantitative research, quantitative models that show how things work locally. We have great models on international scale, but local scale in a given village, we still need to work hard. We need those data. And here at the university, we have intelligent students that you can deploy, but of course you need money to send them there. And we also need them to go out and look for real problems. So here at the university we have got methodological research. We help them, teaching them the methodological questions or solutions. But here at the university we are busy. We need them to go out and collect those real problems out and how we can integrate them and solve them. And later on, we will come back to you and show you how the model are working together. So thank you for this.
Great. Thank you so much for that contribution. Really appreciate it. Let's take one more question. And we'll need to get a question from a woman as well, so after this question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Musgrave, and I'm from the School of Wildlife Conservation at the African Leadership University here in Rwanda. I also act as a climate and carbon due diligence consultant to a lot of projects around the world. And both in my role as an academic and as a due diligence and carbon auditor, there's one common thread that runs through getting all of this done. We don't have the expertise. My jaw hangs open in disbelief sometimes when I review carbon projects that have had tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars spent on them. The qualifications and experience of the people running these projects is dismal, at best. And so at the African Leadership University, we identified the skills gap, of course, and we're providing that training. But I guess my question and a bit of a challenge here to the German ambassador and to the EU ambassador, take your budgets for capacity building, multiply them by 10. Actually, don't multiply them by 10, multiply them by 100. What would that amount be relative to the billions that we are talking about when we go to COP, it would be almost insignificant. We struggle to get people onto these courses. We struggle to provide this training. We fight for every last cent to get a Rwandan student, a Tanzanian student, a South African student, a Botswanan student, a Congolese student to come through these courses. We've been partially successful at winning scholarships. Why are we fighting for this money, guys? Why are we fighting this money? Why is it so difficult to get this training done? Because those hundreds of billions will go down the same drain that the previous 10 years of carbon expenditure disappeared if we don't have the expertise on the ground to deliver this. That's my challenge. Thank you very much.
Mike. If we could just hand the mic over to the lady just sitting across to your right, and then we'll take one more question and I'll come to the ambassador and Elsa.
All right, thank you. My name is Naomi Nautarama, and I come from the NGO called Leadership for Conservation in Africa. And my question, I'll address my question to Ineza Grace. You spoke about the platform to learn climate policies and climate finance. I believe so many youngsters are interested in climate finance topics, carbon markets, but there is a lack of understanding, deep understanding of what it is about. We just go in the crowd, but I wanted to ask you, as a young Rwandan, young woman, what are those platforms? What could be your what could you advise us who are looking to take into your steps in the future? And I like that the panel was about women, and it's really inspiring to see you as panelists and what you've achieved so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Appreciate that. Ambassador, let's turn to you first, followed by Ineza.
So I would say that point is very well taken and very much shared. So this doesn't come as a news to us, and we are great fans of the ALU University, just to say it up front, and you're doing a great work, and you're doing a great work in building the new leadership in the continent. And of course, it's essential that climate and green transformation is at the heart of the new leadership of the continent. So we're very much aware, and there is some funding devoted to that. There are some opportunities for research and for high-level academic exchanges. So that's something that we can certainly share, and yes, very well understood. And so yes, I wanted to join the other voice to say what a pleasure and a luxury to share a panel with these great voices, and it shows that the plan to build the woman and climate change agenda forward is already up and running in Rwanda. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Ineza, over to you.
Thank you so much. I think my answer is not going to be very straight because we're still learning by doing. That's the phrase we like to use. But we've been trying our best to avail ourselves, by ourselves, I mean the team. So that's why we have like program like the Youth Climate Dialogue, where you can meet other fellow young people who are young expert following this thematic, and then you can ask them all the questions. So because these events are hosted twice a year, we thought that was not enough. That's why we opted to create a kind of policies and case studies that we can share on our platform. These are not country position, just much more like a reflection and much more of trying to narrow down the explanatory of what happened in an easy way. These documents are mostly available on our website. And the other thing is that now we have an office, and one of the key things that most of our colleagues say is you are always welcome as a young person. And you can meet us, and you can have a one-on-one with the team, and then you can talk about carbon market, you can talk about climate finance, adaptation, even other thematics that other fellow young Rwandans are following, we'll be very happy to put you in contact. And the other thing that we also rely on is to work, or like that we use, is also to connect with our local government institution, because they're also giving us access to information, and then we are having this spirit of giving back to youth, and we try to create that ability of being present, and then we are still trying, but we're gonna get there. And yeah, the other thing also we do is just we also try to break out everything into also trying to reach students, like in high school or in primary school, because we do debate. And when we do debates competition, we also talk about this, but in a much more different audience with children and young ones. And they also have same questions as the ones that I think we are having in the room, which is more like, why don't we get the money? Where's the issue? Where's the innovation? Why can't you give me, for example, in school, they ask us, why don't you give us access to have sustainable waste management in our facilities? And to say like this spirit is that's why we're trying also to bring back down. I'll be very happy to connect afterwards, and then we can more discuss in depth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inez. I really appreciate that. And Naomi, hope that answers your question. Perfect. I've seen a few more hands. We've come to almost the end of the time for our session, but we do have an opportunity for networking over light snacks before our Climate and Biodiversity Nexus event kicks off at 1:30, so that we do have about an hour to network and connect, and I encourage everyone to stick around. There's one comment we received on YouTube from Patrick Uhirwa. This one's directed towards the Green Protector. Kigali Climate Talks, a big shout out to the Green Protector. You're playing a heavy role regarding climate actions. Thanks. So thank you, Patrick, for that comment as well. I'd now like to turn back to the panel for some closing reflections in one or two sentences. What is the key message you'd like our audience to take away from today's discussion and your experience? Lorraine, I'd like to start with you.
Thank you, David. I think as a closing reflection for me, it's we've talked about ecosystem, we've talked about being proactive and being ahead of the curve. And I think we need to just continue doing what we're doing. We're doing amazing, I think. Not to boast our own, or toot our own horn. But yeah, let's continue doing what we're doing. Let's create an enabling environment for all the playing actors so that we can mobilize more climate finance. Thank you.
Ineza, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think I'll be having two. The first one will be the quote I think I brought from our president, which is much more like, it's possible to go, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. But then when you are with the team, it's possible to go fast and far, to go far and far, to go fast and far together. And I think that is that's something that we carry, because at the end, everything seems impossible until it is done. And that is something that I feel like I carry every day.
Thank you so much, Inez. I really appreciate it. Doreen.
Of course, we totally do appreciate all the efforts that are going into this, and I really love the fact that COP29 was about how do we mobilize more finance. So the question, back to the country is how do we make this finance then more affordable to the private sector? Just to add on to your previous question on how do we enable more bicycles? Yeah, in addition to creating the right environment, we really need to make the provide access or open doors to more affordable, whether it's going to be climate finance or finance in other ways to be able to support that. I feel like I didn't give a good enough shout out to REG when the gentleman asked, and that part of the reason why we're also fully now reliant on REG is in our past year of operation, I think we've only had an outage like maximum for 20 minutes. Wow. So that's just to show that there's existing infrastructure. How do we either leverage it or support it to get better?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So for those of us who are considering getting an electric car or taking an electric motor, we have the infrastructure to do it.
need to support them to, enhance that. Although it doesn't stop us from thinking innovatively about, more renewable options, but really it just, sometimes before we think of something new, how do we enhance what's already existing?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Ambassador.
So for me, it's to recognize the pleasure that it is in a country where we share the same high level of ambition and where we are together in claiming up that high level of ambition, and to see that there is such a collective effort with so many different stakeholders that are involved in this agenda. So the team to deliver that dream, it's big, and we're very pleased to be part also of that team. One last reflection to connect with the sessions this afternoon is the great link between what we've discussed today on climate and biodiversity and the importance of that link, and to invite you all to stay for this afternoon chat on this theme. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and thank you to our panelists. Please give them a big round of applause. Today we've heard from the Minister, from the ambassadors, from a diverse range of speakers from the private sector, public sector, and civil society, also from partners from mining, from academia, from conservation organizations. I really want to thank you for your active contribution to today's session. It seems like we're building a pretty good green team, don't you think? And it's going to take all of us to achieve these very ambitious goals that we've set. And as the Minister and as Faustin outlined, those goals are only going to become more ambitious with Rwanda's NDCs 3.0. As the Ambassador mentioned, we're going to take a short break now for light refreshments at the back of the room. At about 1:30, we'll be kicking off our second session of the day, which is on climate and biodiversity nexus. So please do stick around for that. That will be in this room here. The youth dialogue will be taking place just around the corner on the ground floor, and will be led by the Green Protector. So once again, thank you so much for joining this morning's session. Don't go anywhere. There's snacks, vegetarian, climate-friendly snacks at the back of the room. And before we wrap up, I'd like to invite the Minister, Ambassador, and all our speakers for a group photo. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again, everyone. I would also like to encourage you to register using the QR code at the entry. We'll be sending you the recap, the video, the recap, and also the photos from today's session as well. Please join us for networking and refreshments at the back of the room. Murakoze cyane.